Next, establish methods to assist rapid cooling. Always leave food uncovered during cooling. This will hasten the cooling process. Replace the cover or lid only after the food has cooled down to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Foods must be cooled in a refrigerator or in an ice bath. They should never be allowed to cool while stored at room temperature. For example, being left out on top of a counter. Cut large pieces of meat into smaller pieces, 6 pounds or less. Such small portions will cool rapidly. Larger pieces take longer to cool. Next, do not cool foods in large deep pots. Pour out the contents of large containers into much smaller ones or into shallow pans 4 inches deep with the product depth of 1 to 2 inches. Next, use an ice water bath. An ice water bath can be made up by filling a sink or other large container with ice and water. Place the container of hot food into the ice water bath. While foods are cooling in this ice bath, stir the food periodically. Do not forget to replace the ice as it melts away. Okay, next, you may apply ice directly into food as an ingredient. Thick soups and gravies may be cooled down rapidly by adding ice directly into the food. Next, use a rapid chill unit or a blast chiller. Next, insert an ice paddle into food and stir. Next, you may combine methods above, for example, cut food into small pieces and place in shallow pans in an ice water bath. And finally, metal containers such as stainless steel or aluminum are great conductors of heat. Use metal containers for all cooling operations. All right, let's go to the last and final page. Here we are, reheating. Okay, the health code requires that all cooked, refrigerated, potentially hazardous food that is to be served hot must be reheated to 165 degrees Fahrenheit or above for 15 seconds within 2 hours and held at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or above until served. This destroys bacteria that cause food poisoning and prevents bacteria from growing in the food. It is important to remember that reheating can only be done effectively on a stove or in an oven. A hot holding unit is designed to hold hot foods hot, but is not effective in reheating cold foods. Potentially hazardous foods reheated in a microwave must be covered and reheated to a temperature of at least 190 degrees Fahrenheit and allowed to stand covered for 2 minutes afterwards. Microwave ovens cook food unevenly, so the temperature is not distributed equally throughout the food. Okay, next. Ready to eat food taken from a commercially processed, hermetically sealed container or from an intact package from a food processing plant that is subject to city, state, or federal inspection must be reheated to 140 degrees Fahrenheit within 2 hours after it is removed from container or package and held at that temperature until served. Okay, next. Cooked and refrigerated food that is prepared for immediate service to an individual customer may be served at any temperature the customer requests. Next, food should be prepared as close to the serving time as possible and in quantities that will minimize leftovers, thus eliminating any need for cooling and reheating. All right. Next, dedicated food washing sinks. Okay. Cross-contamination happens when bacteria from one food spread to another. This is a common cause of foodborne illnesses. One way to prevent this is to keep cooked and ready-to-eat foods away from potentially hazardous raw foods, such as meat, poultry, and fish. To reduce the risk of cross-contamination, the health code now requires washing food in, first, a single compartment culinary sink used for this purpose only. Next, a dedicated compartment of a multi-compartment sink. And lastly, a food grade container or colander if neither of above is available. Okay. Food washing sinks must be cleaned and sanitized prior to use and after the washing of raw meat. A sink in which food is washed may not be used as a slop or utility sink for hand washing, right? So you can't use hand washing for meat for hand washing. Do not crisscross that. Okay. Plastic microwave containers allowed. Here's the next section. Microwave safe containers prevent harmful substances from leaching into foods. To protect diners, food establishments must use containers that display the words microwave safe or one of these symbols. Okay, microwave safe picture, and there's the other picture sticker there. Wow. Okay, next, outdoor cooking requirements. Okay, cooking outdoors is now allowed. It is allowed, providing the establishment protects food and equipment. To cook outdoors, the establishment must, okay, 1, have permission to cook outdoors from the buildings and fire departments and any other agency as required by law. Next, maintain complete control of the outdoor cooking space. Next, provide a hand wash sink if food is prepared outdoors. Next, protect food, utensils, and cooking equipment from contamination using awnings, tents, screens, or vermin-resistant containers. Next, store food, utensils, and equipment indoors when the outdoor area is not in operation. And finally, prevent nuisances such as from smoke, garbage, noise, or pests. Construct the floor using smooth, durable, non-absorbent, and easily cleanable material that is free of gaps. Okay. Have sufficient lighting to allow safe operations and cleaning. Yeah, people have to see what they're, if this, and tell whether it's clean or not. The health code requires 540 lux, 50-foot candles of lighting at surfaces where food workers are preparing and processing food or using utensils or equipment such as knives, slicers, grinders, or saws. Okay, so lighting is also a food safety standard. Note, cooking is not allowed on a street or sidewalk except during street fairs or other events where city permission has been granted. Okay, finally, time as public health control. Okay, a health code change allows food establishments to hold potentially hazardous foods without temperature control if certain time limits and other guidelines are met. Using time only to monitor food instead of time and temperature is called time as a public health control. Using time as a public health control is a concept that recognizes that significant bacterial growth or toxin production are not possible within a limited time period. The health code allows food service establishments to use time as a public health control to hold hot or cold foods for a limited time without the use of heat or refrigeration. This cannot be done haphazardly. Okay? Food establishments can now hold potentially hazardous food without temperature control for 4 to 6 hours if they meet certain time limits and other guidelines. Before this health code change, potentially hazardous hot foods had to be maintained at a minimum hot temperature and cold foods at a maximum cold temperature at all times. To use time as a public health control, take the food from temperature control and measure the food's temperature. Cold food must be 41 degrees or colder and hot food 140 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter when removed from temperature control. Place a label on the food and write the time the food was removed from temperature control, the food's starting temperature, and the time it will be 4 hours. I repeat, 4 hours later. For cold food, write down the time it will be 6 hours, and I repeat, 6 hours later. Serve hot food within 4 hours or discard it. All right, so after 4 hours, you got to throw it out if it's hot. For cold food, take the food's temperature after 4 hours and write that temperature on the label. If the temperature is more than 70 degrees Fahrenheit at 4 hours, immediately discard the food. All right, remember that TDZ, temperature danger zone. If the temperature is less than 70 degrees, you can hold the food for an additional 2 hours, okay? You must throw away any food not served within 6 hours. All right, so not served within 6 hours, hot or cold. Throw it out if it's been out. For more information on these items, please visit New York City Gov Health Food Service. All right, now that's the end of chapter 8. and with time to take the quiz.